Hello everyone, welcome back to the SMITE Comprehensive Guide to Horus. I just happened to get a complete Horus game by accident. This is support Horus, by the way. So, right away, the first thing that I'm noticing as a support Horus is very specifically how high damage the enemy team is. Now, looking at their team composition, I am assuming at this point one of the assassins is the solo lane. My knee-jerk guess is Thanatos. However, it turns out that I'm wrong. It's actually Thor. Okay? For reference, by the way, Ra is our solo lane. Okay? So, I already know ahead of time that I am actually going to want to take the risk of playing Gauntlet of Thebes. Now, I specifically said running the risk. This is because the enemy duo lane, namely Artio and Scotty, are actually very dangerous in the early game. Artio has 6 abilities instead of an ult, and Scotty, of course, has Calder. This makes them unusually strong in the early game, and to be totally honest, it's quite potentially concerning to try to build Gauntlet of Thebes here, but I'm going to take that risk, it's especially risky considering how difficult it can be to get stacks with Horus. I actually have a great example later on in this match of that. But I am looking at this team composition and I'm thinking to myself, well, between Hera, Scotty, Thor, and Thanatos late game, I think that Gauntlet of Thebes will do me a lot of good in the late game. So I'm really banking on the late game here. Alright, I am kind of accepting the fact that my early game isn't going to be that fantastic. Alright, but that it wasn't going to be that fantastic versus Scotty and Artio anyways, so how well this will or will not go is going to quite heavily depend on how aggressive the Ishtar is in this particular match. Something I'm a little concerned about, but Ishtar's... it depends on the player. So that's kind of what I'm also looking at here. Another thing that I want to point out is Sylvanas is our jungler. Now, this also means that, based on Sylvanas' baseline move speed, that Sylvanas isn't very likely to be fast-moving. Sylvanas is likely to be outpaced by the enemy Thanatos, so an early-game gank is not terribly likely, right? So that's also another concern. So while I do have all of these concerns, my move is going to be Gauntlet of Thebes, because based on all these factors, my early game is going to suck anyways, so why not bank for that late game, right? That is my thought process right here. So let's skip ahead to here. I think we can do... yeah. Now, we actually get off to a couple of interesting... actually, let me go back 10 seconds here, because you actually will see very quickly right here a really interesting problem. I think I look at her really quick. Hold on, do I? I'm not sure. But you'll notice right here, she's kind of off to the side here. This isn't a great place to stand because she can actually clip this rock. It takes slightly longer to travel from there to the purple buff. That and the fact that I, myself, goof this opening move here. Yeah, you can see her where she's very oddly positioned there. That takes a little bit longer. Right, so I actually goofed this. I missed that auto attack, which throws the whole thing off, and I wind up getting last hit on both of those. You can see how long it took her to navigate around. So I already know we're going to be a little behind in terms of timing, which isn't great considering we were already going to have a rough early game. Bust up my hog. She uses her ability, and now I am not exactly optimistic going into this lane, because now her wave clear ability isn't up, and this is going to get very rough. So I'm going to be trying to apply some pressure here as quickly as possible. You'll notice I focus Calder out to try to eliminate him as quickly as possible. I use Horrific Curse so that way I can reduce their clear and their ability to chase. And then at this particular point, I'm just trying to keep the Artio off. Now, the Artio interrupting that was decent. She didn't need to. It wasn't going to make a big difference. Whether she stunned me before or after that wasn't going to be a big deal. But they press very hard, and the Artio gets hit quite decently hard, and now Ishtar is actually able to wave clear. We're actually starting to get that wave clear. I'm trying to help with that right at this particular point. They're taking some good poke from the minions, but, you know, now we're in a decent position. Now I'm level 2, and I can actually get the stun. Now they This this is a rather bold move for them. Normally, when when the waves are about to meet, you don't want to go for the scepter. You usually want to go for the scepter right after clearing the wave. They stuck around too long. You can actually see where they stuck around too long, right? Because they're clearing the front wave here, right? The front line of the wave. And then they start moving on to the back line of the wave. Well, they actually press... Well, the Artio presses me, Ishtar is pressed by the Scotty, then the Scotty finishes the back line. At this point, they should have immediately left, and they waited a little bit first, right? But they waited so long to clear that wave that now we're going to move up and we're going to be able to take this wave. This is going to give us a huge amount of minion advantage. Now, this alone isn't necessarily a problem for them because they can go around. You can actually see, I actually want to point out the two specific pathing, right? So Scotty comes around this way, and I'm not 100% sure what Artio is doing very specifically here, but she winds up going around this way from this side, and this winds up to be a terrible decision for her because she's going to be taking a lot of minion poke. Ishtar is going to be able to shoot her from a very safe location. That was a huge mistake. She loses a ton of health just by pathing that way. Right, whereas the Scotty loses very little because I wasn't going to initiate on her from that angle and from that distance, but the Artio was at a great angle and distance for me to initiate on, so we were able to get a lot of damage on her. Now, she doubles down on this mistake, interestingly enough, where she is... Both of them are actually quite focused on the Ishtar. You can see the Scotty is ignoring the minions. Artio is ignoring the minions. Both of them are trying very hard to get Ishtar. Now, this is a mistake for two reasons. One, you can see the Scotty has very low mana at this point, whereas Ishtar, you can see, has about half of hers. I have about half of mine. I'm decently healthy, and the Artio took so much poke from that pathing earlier that she's really not in great condition. She's not in any kind of condition to chase down a kill like this. So this is actually a really... This doubles down on the mistake of Artio's pathing. Now, obviously, Artio's pathing mistake wasn't going to be fatal. We did some good damage to her, sure, but it wasn't necessarily going to be fatal. This is Artio. She can heal that back, which is probably why she chose to path in that particular way in the first place. However, with Scotty as low on mana as she is currently, and the Artio is low on health, they really should be clearing the waves, because you can see right now how the minions are all going after Artio, and pretty soon they're going to switch to Scotty. And I know for a fact that as long as I can keep Ishtar alive, we've got a really good shot at a counter kill here, right? But they are really doubling down on this, and it's only after the Ishtar gets away that they kind of stop, but by that point they've taken some good poke anyways. So I'm just going to stand here, I'm just trying to keep the Ishtar alive, I'm interrupting the Artio, right? They're pressing really hard, and of course we have the minions here. Now, her using this ability, you can actually see where she gets herself killed. You can see the moment, right? So, again, we have the waves coming up, Artio moves in to initiate, right? She's initiating into a wave. Now, keep in mind that we're on our half of the field, so our wave reinforcements are coming in far earlier than theirs. We're about to eliminate their front line, so they're only going to have their back line, right? So Artio shouldn't be initiating on this in the first place. Not into this wave, not with that low of a health, not with Scotty that low on mana. But she does so. I interrupt. And then she's starting to take a lot of damage. She's getting a lot of damage from the minions because, of course, she did actually hit me. Now, the Scotty, I'm pretty sure right now, is trying to sacrifice the Artio in order for her to kill Ishtar. However, once again, Ishtar has the mana to resist this. This isn't really a huge concern for me at the time, because, at minimum, Ishtar has the capability of dashing away, right? But right now, the Artio is really low. You can see where she's pulling the minion aggro here, right? And you can see where she's still pulling that minion aggro. And then right here, when she uses this ability right here, this finishes her off because she is now damaging me, which confirms and reinforces that minion aggro. I don't even have to really do that much at this point. I just keep on auto-attacking her. And then when her thing stops, I'm able to go ahead and dash into her and finish her off before Thanatos can even arrive. Right, and she basically ended her whole career there with continuing to damage me. Now, she was trying to heal off of me, but that early in the game with the level 1 ability, that's not going to heal enough to outpace minion damage at this point in the game. So that was really what finished her off. I just kind of cleaned up the last bit of health there. So now we get to clear this wave. I'm only really concerned right now about Thanatos. I know Thanatos was there for a bit. I'm not sure where Thanatos is going at this point, so I'm just going to stand here and let Ishtar clear. I want the assist stacks, right? I don't want to press Scotty because I don't know, once again, where Thanatos is. Now I see Thanatos has hit mid lane, which is great. Also, Vulcan killed Hera, so I don't need to go over there or anything like that, so that's great. Thanatos dies, which is also fantastic. And, you know, at the end of the day, this is all really wonderful for us, right? So we're just going to keep on clearing waves. I want to get some more gold for Thebes, obviously, because I don't have enough for Thebes. That's what I'm doing. And we clear that, and now what I want to do is go back for our purple buff. Now, I don't want to regress onto their purple buff, because Artio is about to come back fresh. Ishtar had called that, by the way. She pinged that. You can see and hear the ping. That's why I pathed that way. But I don't want to press their purple buff, because Artio is about to come back fresh, and while we're in decent shape, we're not in enough shape to be trying to steal their purple and confront a full health and mana Artio. It's just not going to happen. Even with Scotty as low in mana as she is, she does still have Calder, so yeah, going for their purple buff wasn't going to be the move. So now I'm just trying to clear this wave with Ishtar. I take a bit of a risk here, but I have my healing flight up, which I use here to make sure that Scotty doesn't kill me, and at this point I'm just trying to get assist stacks. Now I can't leave because Artio is here, and she's pretty fresh, right? She also took an unusually long time to return to lane, so I'm not really sure what she was doing, right? That's a whole different question, that's a whole different conversation, but now we have minion advantage, and we have minion advantage because the Artio was not helping, right? I'm pretty sure they were being distracted by something in real life, I'm not really sure, but she was not assisting the Scotty at all, so we got very easy minion aggro, and you can actually see where I initiate here because we do have that minion aggro, and of course Scotty still has very low mana. Now this is a bit of a risk chasing this down here because again we don't know where Thanatos is very specifically. Ishtar actually also misses her dash, so I'm just trying to, you know, keep an eye on Ishtar, make sure she gets out, make sure she's safe, but I'm not looking to go too far up because I really don't want to get slapped by Thanatos. That's my big concern. Thanatos, by the way, has recently hit level 5, so the concern of a Thanatos ult showing up is very real. I also unfortunately miss my dash. Ishtar really hard commits, almost gets the kill but doesn't quite, and I'm just trying to keep the Artio off of her in the meantime. Scotty reinitiates, Ishtar misses another dash, which is just a common occurrence right now. We're both having problems. So at this particular point, this wouldn't be a bad time for me to be leaving lane in the near future. The Scepter buff is probably up, so I'm kind of looking at that right now, but I'm also still worried about Thanatos, so I don't quite want to leave yet. I actually get paranoid and throw down that ward really quickly. But I'm just trying to keep an eye on Ishtar here. I would like to leave because I now have, well, more than enough gold, but now I'm moving forward here. You'll notice I'm moving forward, but I'm not using any abilities. I am committing 0 abilities to this moving forward. I'm trying to intimidate them into letting the minions under the tower, right? Because when the tower shoots the minions, they don't get gold for it. They don't get gold for that minion kill or assist. So that's what I'm trying to accomplish here. And lo and behold, it does succeed. I do get some minions shot by the tower, so it was definitely worth it. I spent no mana. Here's Thanatos, of course, which is what I've been dreading the whole time. I'm trying to, again, keep them away. I wind up using horrific emblems so I can get far enough distance so I can use my healing flight. And I'm able to make it out alive, which is just absolutely fantastic. Absolutely amazing. Right? That's the dream right there. So, Ishtar leaves. Now, this is a mistake on Ishtar's part, okay? Ishtar left me with this wave. She really should have stuck around for this last wave, in all honesty. I should not have been left here alone with this. Nevertheless, it has, of course, happened, and that's okay. It's not a huge mistake, but it might cause her problems in the future. But now I get to go back, I get to get my Gauntlet of Thebes, I get to actually, you know, buy my items, and now I get to go to mid lane. Now, unusually, that was a surprisingly effective early game here. Actually, let me really quickly talk about what I'm looking at for the enemy builds here, because I take a very quick look at very specific builds, and what I'm specifically looking at is what Artio is doing, right? And at this particular point, I'm looking at Artio here. She's not quite got Gauntlet of Thebes, obviously. She probably at this point, considering she just probably backed, she probably does now, but I also wanted to look at what the rest of the enemy team was building. And it's terribly interesting that Thor seems to be working towards Frostbound Hammer or Runic Hammer, right? That's fairly interesting. Something else I'm noticing really quick is that both of these mages have Book of Thoth, and so does Sylvanas. Now, the Sylvanas stacks concern me a little because, as I've stated many times before, building stacks as a jungler can be very difficult, and considering that Sylvanas is not exactly the highest of damage dealers, yes, he does have Mannequin Scepter, sure, absolutely, but while that does deal some good damage, I'm still concerned about how quickly Sylvanas will be able to build these stacks, especially since Sylvanas is barely ahead at this particular point, right? In fact, I'm pretty sure the only reason Sylvanas is ahead is because Vulcan killed Thanatos earlier. But I'm still a little bit concerned. However, a little hope was restored when I noticed that the Thanatos also has Mannequin Scepter, because quite honestly, Mannequin Scepter is not a fantastic item on Thanatos. There are a variety of better items to jungle with Thanatos with. This is a bit of an unusual choice, given only Sylvanas and Ishtar are going to be genuinely concerned about their auto attacks, so I do somewhat wonder why this was Thanatos' choice. I can't tell you why. I have never considered Mannequin Scepter to be a great choice on Thanatos. Now, I'm sure it's to go into the evolution later on, but it's this early game for Thanatos that it really hurts, and I just think there are better choices for Thanatos. One day when I do a comprehensive guide to Thanatos, I'll talk about that, but I'm not fond of this as a starter item for Thanatos. I know why people build it. It's for the mannequin, not the mannequin mace, the other one there. I can't remember it off the top of my head. It does true damage. It's really not that much damage, to be honest. Not for Thanatos. But anyways, back to the point. So I'm looking at all of this, and I have very mixed feelings. But the most important thing is that I'm starting to build stacks, and theoretically, Artio isn't, right? So at this particular point, I'm looking to start building up my physical protections, and I decide to go right into a nice Gladiator Shield. Now, the reason why I'm going into Glad Shield is because, as I mentioned earlier, they are an unusually high damage comp, which means they're going to be a little lower on protections. So I'm going to be able to hit a little bit harder with Gladiator's Shield than I normally would. And also because of the unusually great early game against what would normally be a dreaded early game duo lane, I'm actually really confident in the long term of this game. So I'm fairly enthusiastic. So at this point, I'm just going to try to keep Vulcan alive. Now, once again, I don't know where Thanatos is, so I have some mild concerns. Vulcan's trying to lay a trap, but we wind up going for the left lane. Now, the reason why we go for the left lane, by the way, incidentally, this is rather significant. Despite the fact that the Thor's build is kind of odd, given that he's playing solo lane here, it is generally difficult for mages to solo lane against assassins. Now, at this particular point, yes, the Ra is ahead of the Thor. But the Thor, in my mind, is probably looking to build Frostbound Hammers. That way he can lock down the Ra with auto attacks using Frostbound Hammer to decrease Ra's move speed, and then from there wail on Ra and win boxing matches. This is my concern. So while Thor is down level, it's not so far down that I am confident that Ra is going to be able to fend off this Thor all by himself. Sylvanas is on his way over as well, and of course I have Vulcan with me. So this is looking like a pretty good gank here, but this is very specifically why I'm choosing to gank Thor here. Right, I want to make sure Ra has no issues slapping people, and of course the Vulcan absolutely slaps the Thor. I'm fairly content with that. I'm very happy. Back to mid lane. I take a brief moment to be distracted by Thanatos here because I don't want Thanatos ganking Ra. Thanatos backs up. That's exactly what I wanted. Again, another moment where, as a support, I was able to zone out an enemy without having to use any abilities, which is great. Now, I initiate on this Artio, and I completely whiff my dash, unfortunately, but I initiate on this Artio very specifically because I'm expecting poke, right? The Hera is going to be, if not already up, is up is going to be in lane soon, right? If she's not already pretty close. She might be at her damage camp for all I know. But I'm looking to poke out this RDO just in general, right? And then we just go really hard on this. I mean, yeah, she does go, she does escape, but then Thanatos comes in, right? Now, this is what I was concerned about, because I know Thanatos is hanging around in left jungle. I initiate on the RDO, we're looking for that poke. We do a pretty good amount of damage to her, although she's level 5, so that's not really that surprising. Then the Thanatos comes in, and I'm just, once again, trying to keep the Vulcan alive when Sylvanas ults. Now, I wasn't particularly thrilled with this. I'm pretty sure this is a mixed signal, because right here, right, yeah, obviously we're doing some good damage to RDO, right, we're pulling it out of the stops, short of our ults. Thanatos comes in, and then, boom, this ult happens. So I'm like, alright, at this point, I know this is damaged Sylvanas, so I know that ult is going to hurt them a lot in the short-term time frame that it takes to fully activate. Thanatos ults, now I'm concerned, I can't use my dash because here's RDO with her thing down, so I'm looking to just take out the RDO really quick, but this winds up being a mistake on my part, because I am not able to save my allies. Now, whether or not you feel that I could have done so, because right here I'm zoned out by the RDO who's not even paying attention to me, right? And I don't really have a whole lot of options. So they both die. Whether or not I had the ability to save them, I don't know. Probably, in my personal opinion, I do think I could have probably saved at least one of them. So that is a mistake on my part, going so hard on the RDO, but then Thor makes this mistake. Now this is where Thor loses his lane. I'm not even kidding. Thor has just lost his lane with this move. Because first off, he's 2 levels down. Second off, Ra has clearly just cleared a wave, so this is going to be a full wave going under Thor's tower. Alright, so we have those 2 factors. Third off, he is diving a tower against a support who is the same level as him. This isn't a great idea. Now, he might be trying to line up to sacrifice himself so Thanatos can kill me, which very likely is possible. But I'm still the support. Yes, I happen to be doing unusually well. I'm a level ahead of RDO, I have 2 kills. Very true. But at the end of the day, I'm still a support, and I'm not really likely to hit that hard in the late game, and probably not even in the mid game. So this particular dive does not make a whole lot of sense. This is a very odd decision. So, they're going really hard on me. I'm trying to do as much damage as possible. I'm trying to take somebody with me. I wind up killing the Thor, and then I die to the Hera, which isn't great, but the Thor dying there, and now I wasn't expecting to kill him there. Alright, I'm going to be really honest. I was a little surprised when my little whirlwind was enough to kill him. But down he goes, and here's Ra wiping out this wave and being able to push another wave down. Now, he backs here, and I actually call out that he should attack left tower, because I don't think that the wave alone is enough. You'll see in a couple of seconds it is, and my concerns were unfounded. And the Ra is a bit more aware of that damage than I am, right? Because he's obviously right there, and I'm not. So he makes the correct call there, in fact. And there goes the tower. You can see where there were 2 minions left, I think. So, okay, that frees the Ra up to rotate as he pleases, right? Which is great. Now, the Thor theoretically is also free to rotate, but he already has been, so it's not really that big of a deal. At this particular point, Ra can do whatever he wants. Now, once again, I'm just zoning out the RDO here. I'm just doing some poke, while Sylvanas plays around with Hera over there. You can see him fighting Hera, right? And then the Vulcan ults the Hera in an absolutely fantastic move. And at this particular point, once again, I'm just making sure that he's not going to get slapped by Thanatos. That's my only concern. But there's Thanatos out of absolutely nowhere, so I already failed that one. Now my concern is Sylvanas. Let me get Sylvanas out of here at least, because there's nothing I can do about this. The Thanatos ult, obviously, but I can get the Sylvanas out, right? So that's really nice. I get him out. They probably weren't going to be able to kill him anyways. I warn the Ra that there are people coming left. I want to weaken this wave before going over there myself, right? Because that's going to give our wave the opportunity. You can see the Thanatos and the RDO in left jungle there, and then I'm going in. Now, I'm willing to commit to this because I can see the Sylvanas coming in, right? And I know RDO and Thanatos are over here, and I also know that Thor is 3 levels down. In fact, the RDO herself is 2 levels down, so we actually are in a really good position. In fact, the only one on the enemy team here who's ahead is the Thanatos. And again, that has a lot to do with Thanatos' speed compared to Sylvanas. Alright, both of them have taken some tumbles. But at the end of the day, it's Thanatos' ability to zip from camp to camp a little bit faster and clear the jungle a little bit faster that has caused Sylvanas to fall a level down. Right? So it is also, additionally, not only do we have the advantage in 2 out of 3 of these situations, but Thor is way the hell up here, so it's going to take him a little while to get there unless he directly ults in. Which he might have his ult at this point, I don't know. But at the end of the day, if we win this fight, then that's going to put Sylvanas in a much better position unless somehow Sylvanas dies first, and since Sylvanas has got a self-heal and is building power, that's not quite as likely. So I really want to gank this. And there's the RDO. She's checking the mana buff. I goof my ult a little bit here, but it's fine. Right? I'm immediately prioritizing the Thanatos. Now, that wasn't an accident. I mentioned earlier that the Thanatos was the only one on the enemy team who was ahead of her rival on our team, namely Sylvanas. For that very specific reason, you can see where I singled out the Thanatos. At minimum, I wanted Thanatos dead. We have accomplished that. We still have a great shot at killing RDO, so I'm going to chase this. But at the end of the day, I accomplished my minimum goal of getting Thanatos killed, which is huge for Sylvanas. This is going to give Sylvanas a great opportunity to catch up. Now, I'm poking out this Thor. I actually waste my horrific curse here because I'm kind of expecting him to actually box me for some reason because of, well, I know why. I was expecting him to box me because he dove the tower for me, so I figured he might try to stick around and fight me out with that little mana, but he did not. So I wasted my horrific curse there, essentially. Which is fine, it's not that big of a deal. I wait a couple of seconds for Glad Shield here while assessing where I want to go next, and Vulcan is in the midst of a fight with Hera that he unfortunately loses. Now that's not a huge surprise, you also see the Ishtar fall as well. This doesn't surprise me terribly. Alright, in 1v1 scenarios, Hera with Argus is very difficult to deal with, and Skadi with Calder is also equally difficult to deal with. Now, I'm moving right lane here so I can help Sylvanas gank Skadi. Again, this is very similar to my reasoning for why I wanted to gank the left lane when I knew Thanatos is over there. Right now, Skadi is a level up on Ishtar. So what I want to do as a support is lock down the Skadi for Sylvanas to kill so that way Ishtar can catch up. That is my goal here. I could do the same for Hera. Hera is a level ahead as well, but I don't know where Hera is. And my personal guess at this point is that Hera is very likely somewhere in their side of the jungle, and I'm not likely to find her because I only have a 50% chance of picking the correct jungle. My knee-jerk, based on warding, by the way, is that she's probably at her damage camp very specifically, but it's still a gamble because she might not be, and I'm not looking to take that gamble, right? So I'm moving over here right away to go gank Ishtar. That is very specifically what I want. Now, this surprises me. Okay? I was not expecting the enemy to counter gank Sylvanas. So I'm now having a heart attack, basically. I'm not sure what I'm going to do about this. I'm aware keenly of only one thing. Sylvanas is in much more danger than I think any of us were anticipating, and now I have to figure out what the hell I'm going to do about it. My only advantage here is that I am 2 levels up from my rival of RDO. So at this particular point, it becomes a really fascinating question of, alright, how am I going to deal with this? So my first move is to try to lock out the Hera, right? Now, I can see the Ra is here, and the Ra can afford to be here because, again, he's won his lane, right? So he can afford to be here, so he's here. So right now, it's a 3v3 with some advantage. Ra matches Hera in level, and we're going to use that comparison there because Ra is also a mage, even if he's the solo laner. And RDO is 2 levels down from me, and the Skadi is 1 level up of Sylvanas. So we've got decent shot here. We've got a decent shot. So right now I want to eliminate Hera. That is my first priority. Primarily because, again, she is higher than the Vulcans, so that's really important to me. But then they really initiate hard on Sylvanas, and I turn around and stop focusing on Hera because, one, I made the mistake of going for a specific person in the back line earlier when I focused out the Artio and killed her at the likely cost of two of my allies. So I'm not about to make the same mistake again, right? So what I want to do is save Sylvanas. And this is going to be fairly difficult due to the presence of Thanatos. Sylvanas does ult, I heal, but at the end, he goes down, and at this particular point, I am just trying to stall, right? Because I can see reinforcements coming in, Vulcan's about to come in, and Ishtar is coming in, and Vulcan lands a great ult on Scotty, so I'm looking to take Scotty out really quick, and I do, right? And that was just to make sure that Vulcan's ult wasn't in vain, right? That was me just picking up the kill because it was there. Now at this point, you can see where whoever the hell this is, I think that's Artio. Yeah, it is. I can see on the minimap there. And then we have Hera here. Now I can see Artio is almost dead, so I'm going to be looking to ignore her. Now the reason why I ignore her is actually very specific because of her low health, right? My allies aren't really going to have any kind of problem with her. She's not building damage. She's not going to be able to heal up that much, right? It's too early in the game. So I ignore her. I'm going for the Hera because I'm trying to lock her down for the Ra, maybe. Or possibly Ishtar's going to come around. Thanatos sees this and tries to interrupt me. And at this particular point, I'm just trying to get someone killed. Anyone at this point. So I ult, because right now that's the only way I'm going to outpace them, and I'm going to land right here on Hera. Again, she was just the farthest one back. I'm going to single out and eliminate the Artio, and then I'm just trying not to die here to the Thanatos, right? So, meanwhile, you can see we're in the background, Ra and Ishtar, I think. Yes, Ishtar killed the Scotty, which is fantastic, right? And now the Ra saves me from Thanatos, and then Thor had ulted in, and Vulcan saves me from Thor by meatballing him, and then I leave, right? Absolutely great team fight for us. We really only won that primarily because the enemy team overcommitted on the Sylvanas, I would say. Keep in mind that at the start of this fight, right, let me go back to where this fight started, right? We're evenly matched right here, right? 8 and 8. We have 2,000 more gold, so we're a little ahead in terms of itemization, probably by, I want to say, maybe a third or two-thirds maybe of an item across the board, right? We're a little bit ahead. But they're on our side of the jungle, which means reinforcements are not going to be faster to come, and this is actually the deciding factor for this team fight. Because you can see right here, right before the team fight really got underway, that Ishtar and Vulcan were coming back in 1 second, and they were going to come back fresh. Meanwhile, Artio here, you can see, has used some mana, and a bunch of the other enemies have used some mana. Sylvanas is not exactly at the healthiest. But it's right now a 3v3. Scotty, Artio, and Hera versus myself, Ra, and Sylvanas. So we have a decent shot here, especially, like I said, with a lot of our levels balancing approximately out. But we're on our side of the field, and Thanatos isn't here, although Thanatos moves fairly quickly, so that's not a huge deal. And more importantly, Thor isn't here, right? And you can actually see later on how incredibly late Thor arrives, right? Thor actually arrives just as everyone else basically is dying, because I barely survived this, and then the Thor lands on me, again, after everyone else has died, so Thor is by himself, dies, right? That is how late Thor was to that party. Now, I don't specifically know what Thor was doing, but Thor was incredibly late, later than normal to that party. But that's essentially why we won. Our reinforcements had basically just a shorter travel distance, essentially. Why they decided that was a good teamfight opportunity, I'm not really sure. The Scotty could have just retreated away from the Sylvanas before I got there, and they would have been better off, to be honest. Right? So Sylvanas is now back to clearing jungle, and Sylvanas is clearing the jungle really hard right now, primarily due to the fact that Sylvanas right now is trying to take advantage of the death of Thanatos. Now, Sylvanas pulled in this Ishtar, likely because this is Ishtar, right? I'm sorry, not Ishtar, Scotty. Derp. But yeah, the Sylvanas pulled in the Scotty because obviously he saw me coming in from behind and wanted to do some poke here. We got some poke. Could have gotten a little bit more poke if I hadn't been sliding around on that ice like some kind of lunatic. But it's fine, right? The Ishtar is in a much better spot than the Scotty, so even if the Scotty returns to right lane, the Ishtar is going to be fine, because the Scotty took that much damage. I'm looking to poke out Artio a little bit here. Like I said, it's not really a hard commit. Great pull by the Sylvanas. And here's Thanatos, so I'm looking to get out. Alright, the enemy team is clearly looking for a team fight at this particular point in time. Now, Artio dies first, so I'm willing to commit to this. Right? That is my perspective here. I get ulted by Thanatos, that's fine. Sylvanas dies. Not great, but we're still ahead in terms of health, because we got the first kill of this team fight, so I'm fine. I'm looking to single out the Thor at this point, right? I have Glad Shield, I might even be able to kill him in the near future. He ults out. That's fine. I'm trying to deal with Artio, and Ra comes over to help me, but I'm going to wind up dying to literally everyone over here. And at this particular point, my team should be retreating. They don't. The enemy team winds up retreating, except for Thanatos, who just is trying to get a sneaky kill here. But the enemy team does ultimately wind up retreating here. They could have pressed that attack, but they didn't. That was actually a decent opportunity for them to try to press that attack, and I'm not sure why they didn't commit to that, because they had everyone alive, and we were down 2, so... They do, obviously, the Thanatos, of course, who had been hanging around for just such an opportunity, they do take out the Vulcan, but they commit really hard to that. They're right at the tower line, so... You can see where the Thanatos is struggling to get away here, and I'm hoping to just get there in time to stop the Thanatos from escaping, is my basic goal here. But when I realize that I'm not going to be able to catch up to Thanatos, which doesn't really surprise me, I make a move on Artio instead. Artio goes down. I accidentally steal that kill. An amazing pull by Sylvanas means this is a dead Hera, right? Absolutely fantastic pull by the Sylvanas. Scotty unfortunately kills Ishtar, but now I see that she's low. Now, I'm going to commit to this very hard because, again, I'm looking to keep that Scotty not ahead of the Ishtar. And right now, she's 2 levels ahead of Ishtar, which is a problem, right? So I really need to kill her here. And because I'm a support and I have Glad Shield, I stand a much better chance at this. Now, you can see my allies in the right jungle here coming in to try to help me out here, but I really don't need it. I just absolutely slaughter her because Horus is very good, even as a support. He still hits very hard. And I'm just able to clean that up so that way the Ishtar... And the Ishtar recognizes why she said thank you. But that was very specifically why I needed to kill Ishtar there. That was specifically so that way Ishtar would have a... Did I just call her Ishtar? That's why I specifically needed to kill Scotty there, is that way Ishtar would have the chance to catch back up. Or at least start working on catching back up. Because obviously you're not going to catch up 2 levels in that short amount of time. But she can make a start at it at the very least. So I'm back with Vulcan. Now I default to the mid lane because it does give me a lot of rotational possibilities compared to any other lane, which is why I'm back in mid by default. And I see the enemy team is coming in here, so this means that they were originally looking to gank Vulcan, and they probably still are. Sylvanas, you'll see, is going to initiate on the Thanatos. Now you can see where I was just kind of zoning enemies out here a little bit. Right, so Vulcan comes in, he's concerned about the wave, obviously, which is as it should be, and then he's trying to get some poke here with the Artio, and then he backs off, probably because he saw the Thor coming in when I didn't. He had visual line of sight, I only had ward line of sight, so he backs off, he's getting some poke, I'm getting back out, and then I'm kind of initiating in here, and I'm pushing forward because, once again, I want the minions to move up a little bit here, but it's really more of making sure that Thor isn't in a position to attack Vulcan if the Artio decides to initiate. That's what I'm worried about. So I'm effectively looking to deliberately let the Artio initiate on Vulcan, and then keeping the Thor out of it so Vulcan can kill the Artio. He's 4 levels up on the Artio. The Artio is only at 2/3 of her health. he stands a decent chance of killing her. So that's what I'm looking to accomplish here, right? So he's going to actually be distracted by this fight over here. That's fine. I now know that I need to get into that fight. I call the gank to make sure that Sylvanas knows that, hey, we're coming in hot. And Thor initiates. I'm looking to get the Thanatos killed. I'm looking ult in. I overshoot this. You can see how far out I overshot this, and Sylvanas came with me, which is very unfortunate considering how much I overshot. I'm also out of mana. Now, the Thanatos doesn't kill the Sylvanas, right? He actually winds up killing the Ra, who was kicking around over here, where you can actually see where Ra moved over here to try to attack the Hera, and the Argus just absolutely slaps her, and the Thanatos just finishes the job, right? So now my concern is getting Sylvanas out, but this is the entire enemy team here, right? They dispatch him, and then I'm coming down shortly afterwards. And this is because they've all grouped up at this point, and we have not. Ishtar is still in right. Now, that's not necessarily a criticism of the Ishtar. The Ishtar wouldn't necessarily know at this point that the enemy team was looking to group up and attack a lane at this point, right? So, not actually something I can blame her for. Now we know that they are grouping up. Now we as a team have that knowledge. She's going to make some kind of effort to defend the tower. She throws out an ability, decides it's not worth it. I'm going to be going for Breastplate of Valor for the cooldowns and physical protections because I'm taking a lot of physical damage. And at this particular point in time, that's what we're looking at here, right? And now they're going probably for the Gold Fury. Ishtar and Vulcan really should be moving towards it. I start moving towards it, but I realize that we aren't going to get there in time, so I'm just going to stop this. Stop for this. The enemy has destroyed the Gold Fury. Like I said, I wasn't going to make it in time. And now at this point, I just want to make sure Vulcan doesn't get singled out and killed. They might have aggressed from the Gold Fury to Vulcan. They did not, incidentally, which is great for us, but it was something I was concerned about, something that kind of lurked around in the back of my mind there. And at this particular point in time, I'm just looking to ensure that this attack... Now, see, the thing is at this particular point, I'm trying to figure out what specifically I want to do. Look, we have Sylvanas here in mid, we have Vulcan here in mid. Now, it's obvious to the team that we need to take mid tower, right? We've lost our tier 1 and 2, and we need to get those towers down so that way we at least have some leeway here, right? So I'm assuming that they're going to want to attack these. And I see Scotty going back, so I'm assuming she's going back to actually back, but she turns out to actually be just going under tower to safely clear the wave. And so I'm not going to be able to gank her from this angle like I originally thought. And then, boom, here's Ardio and Hera. So I'm looking to get out. Thor cuts me off this way. Alright, so I'm going this way. Now they're initiating hard on me because I am alone, right? And they're looking for any advantage they can get. Vulcan takes a huge advantage of this and does a really impressive ult that slaps a lot of people. I'm looking to get back out. They're still chasing. I've got Argus kicking around, but Thor dies. Now, it's when Thor dies that I decide to ult, right? The instant that Thor died, we're now in a 5v4. I might not be in great condition, but I'm still alive. I still have HP that I can use, and now we have the numbers advantage, so I'm looking to actually commit to this now, right? Just the instant that Thor died. I almost ult myself practically, and now I'm just kind of assuming I'm going to get killed by Thanatos. I do, but I was able to get the Scotty killed first at the very least, and my teammates are really going to be cleaning up here. Now, I did make a miscalculation. You'll notice that I had assumed this was a full team fight. It is not. Ishtar is in right lane, but my team still cleans up very nicely at this particular point in time. And these two are going to chase down the Thanatos. They do eventually kill him, okay? I'm not expecting them to, but my death eventually becomes a 1 for 4, which is great. This is exactly what I want to see as a support. And these two are going to be looking... There goes the Thanatos. These two are going to be looking for the tower, right? Because that was the whole point of that fight. That whole fight was about these towers. That was why we were fighting there. So it is pretty significant that they are going for these towers, because that, again, was sort of the point there. So when they go, right, and at this particular point, I'm just trying to get there in time to save Vulcan, who is clearly on the verge of death, and I am desperately clicking for my healing flight. There it goes. I stop Thor from teleporting to him, and he gets the Thor kill. Ishtar picks up Artio in the background. Absolutely fantastic, and I'm pretty confident between the two of us we can take this tower, especially since Scotty is in right lane, so is obviously not paying attention. I don't know where Hera is, which does concern me, but I am assuming that she's probably going to be looking at the right lane. I'm correct, there she is, right? And so I'm willing to press this tower down. Now I see the Sylvanas is about to die here, so I'm going to try to ult in to save him, but then I see Thanatos ulting in. And while I have a brief moment of hope when Thanatos misses, that obviously fades. I instead am going to try to take out the Thanatos. Again, I'm trying to keep the Sylvanas ahead. Ra's right here with me, but unfortunately we're getting forced out by the Artio. And I don't like this fight anymore because Thor is still kicking around. Hera is, I'm pretty sure, going back to Fountain to refresh, so I'm not liking this fight anymore. And then, there they are, right? The Hera has not healed herself, and now the Thor is cut off, right? Yes, the Hera is there trying to keep the door open for him, but because she's so low on health, she can't do so consistently. You can see she's already stepped off of the button here. So, it is actually very specifically, the moment Thor goes through the door, I am all in on him, right? Artio goes in, she goes back, here's Thor, Thor is getting slapped. I'm willing to go all in on him because here's the door closing, right? He's got no hope of escape. Here's the door opening again, but I've already locked him down with my crowd control. There he goes. So now I'm looking for potential counter initiation. It's a possibility. Here's Thanatos also being cut off from her team. Absolutely fantastic. I'm looking to do the same thing. Ishtar is right there with me. Vulcan picks up the kill. Artio is attacking our backline, but she's by herself. Boom. Go ahead and stop her. Prevent her from killing anyone. Hopefully get her killed too is what I'm looking for. I see Scotty, but I'm too concerned about Artio right now. Artio goes. Now I want Hera, because Hera is obviously very low. Argus dies, so that's going to really help. And in I go for Hera. That is very specifically what I'm looking for here. So I lock her down. I lock down both of them. And then Vulcan gets a pentakill. Now this is really exciting, not only for the Vulcan, this is an amazing thing for the Vulcan, and that was some great gameplay, but I'm pretty sure, and I want to double check this really quick right here, I have 12, 11, 10, yep, I got a penta assist, which is great for me, but the Vulcan's penta is way more exciting. A huge shout out to Payubi for this. This is absolutely incredible awareness, and you actually will continue to see this for the remainder of the match. The awareness of this Vulcan as to what I'm doing. Actually, throughout the match, Payupi had been fairly consistent in picking up what I was laying down, which you really want to see out of a mage, right? The Vulcan sticks pretty damn close to me for most of the match. It really shows here, and it's going to show more, and even more obviously later on in the match, but this is really what you kind of want to do as a mage, but more importantly, since we are talking support, this is what you want to see as a support, right? You want to see your mid laners slash your mage, if you're not playing Conquest, you want to see them stick near you to be picking up what you're laying down, right? You want them to be near you so you can pull enemies off of them, so that way they can take advantage of your crowd control you're laying down. And it was just absolutely great taking advantage. I mentioned earlier that Vulcan had a great use of abilities when I ulted the Thor that first time when I ganked the Thor. That was great. And again, when I was going in on the enemy team in the jungle there, when we started out relatively balanced, same thing, right? Absolutely just huge awareness by this Vulcan. And this is exactly, once again, what you want to see as a support. You want to see that mid lane doing that, and you'll actually see me being really happy for the Vulcan, because that's just amazing for them. I love it when people get pentas. It's so exciting. Always encourage people who got pentas. It's just so fantastic. So the Ra backs up because obviously we no longer had the health at that point. You can actually kind of see that. First off, well, there's two things why they backed off, right? First off, they no longer have the ability for anyone to tank that, right? Sylvanas is too far away, and the Ra isn't really heavy on the protections. So they don't have anyone left that can tank the Phoenix. The minions are coming up, but they're coming up too slowly. By the time that the minions do arrive there, they probably won't be able to do that much. So the Vulcan leaves because the Vulcan obviously was taking Phoenix damage and needed to leave. Then the Ishtar leaves, right? And they just kind of they're kind of looking at the Phoenix, but they know that the Thanatos has come up and they just go. right? There's just no way they're going to be able to take that Phoenix with Thanatos alive, so they just leave, which is the correct decision, 100%. And out they go. The Sylvanas is, pressing mid lane, which is fine. Winds up. Now, I'm not really sure how that happened. I actually rotate to spectating the Sylvanas after the fact. I have no idea how Sylvanas killed the Thanatos. I am aware of the fact that this has something to do with the level advantage at the time, right? But I can't tell you what specifically happened here, because I wasn't even aware of the fact that they were fighting, because the Thanatos was so close to the Sylvanas that on the minimap, I could only see Sylvanas' face. So I don't even know what the hell happened there. But nevertheless, I am looking to get to Sylvanas as quickly as possible, because I am aware of the fact that he is fighting at least 2 other people at this point. You can see them right there. It's Ardeo, and I can't tell who it's Thor. And so I'm looking to get in there. I see Sylvanas running straight at me, so I'm ulting so that way I can pop them back away from Sylvanas. And, I'm just at this point trying to absorb as much as possible for Sylvanas. Sylvanas unfortunately dies. I think Sylvanas stuck around to try to help me out, which is about the only unfortunate thing. And really, the only real mistake Sylvanas made this whole match would be trying to help me out, because you can see right before I land my ult, Sylvanas turns back around. And that's what gets Sylvanas killed here. Even though my original intention, I was fully prepared to sacrifice myself for the Sylvanas. You can see the Sylvanas turn right there, right? You can see some dynamite going off, and then death, right? So that was the only mistake the Sylvanas really actually made in this match. Legitimate mistake, because I was trying to sacrifice myself for the Sylvanas, because the Sylvanas is 2 levels higher, is worth more than me, etc. But unfortunately, the Sylvanas tried to save my life, so they died, unfortunately. And I wind up just setting up a whole bunch of damage for, again, Vulcan, who, again, is sticking right there. I'm sticking right with the Vulcan. I'm looking to get this Scotty killed. I line it up. Vulcan absolutely slaps it. Absolutely fantastic. We take this just for the golden experience. Thanatos dies again. I don't even know what happened to the Thanatos. That happened way too quick for me to be, aware of. But meanwhile, Ishtar has been split pushing, which... Now, this is the interesting thing. Ishtar has been split pushing this whole team fight, and a lot of people would probably be upset by this. However, in this particular case, this is 100% the correct move. Alright, this team fight started way back when with... This team fight technically started with Thanatos' death to Sylvanas right here. That's technically when this team fight started. That already put us 1 up on the team fight, because now it's a 5v4 in theory. So the Ishtar going from damage camp... Now, the only criticism I do have is that Ishtar went from damage camp right to lane, did not come in to try to help Sylvanas here. Right, I do wish the Ishtar had come to try to save Sylvanas. If Ishtar had, I'm pretty sure Sylvanas would have lived. We could have turned that around a little bit faster. Sylvanas probably, like I said, would have survived. But Ishtar went for the buffs and then went into lane to take the tower. And that's still okay, because even, again, the Sylvanas took out the Thanatos first, so we had that numbers advantage. We could spare Ishtar, then Sylvanas dies, now we're in trouble. But then afterwards, Vulcan absolutely cleans up a whole bunch of people, and so does Ra, right? And at this particular point, and I'm pretty sure that it was Ra's kill that actually really changed the Ishtar's mind, because you can kind of see here where Ishtar is kind of hovering around here. She's clearly going for the purple, but it's probably at this point where she was originally going to, come over here and cut the enemy off, but then because we just got all those kills, and now we have a 3v2 advantage, she no longer needs to be here, so she's split pushing, which at that point is the correct decision, but I still feel like she could have saved the Sylvanas if she'd come earlier. Right? But, we get the Sylvanas, the Scotty killed. Ishtar is split pushing that Phoenix, which, again, after the fact, is the correct thing to do. Oh, there's the Thanatos dying to Vulcan very quickly. And at this point, I am now just looking for some farm. Right, we're about to take the right Phoenix. She's absolutely got that, because the entire enemy team is dead. And Vulcan is pressing mid lane. Now, the mid Phoenix, I'm not expecting to take here. In fact, even Vulcan backs off a little bit there. I go in on this, but at the end of the day, this is just not really going to work out. Right, unfortunately, the Ra dies. And I'm just trying to get the Vulcan out at this point, right? Vulcan backs off, which is great. And I'm just trying to make sure that he is going to be safe. We have a fire giant call because we have 4 of us alive, but I need to heal up, obviously. So, at this particular point, grab some extra items here. And they're going to clear the Pyromancer, and then they're going to be going on to the Fire Giant right afterwards. So I'm going to be running over there. I was talking to the Ra a little bit there. And they're instead going to try to press left tower. Now, they probably chose this because the enemy team is now back up at this point in time, so attacking the Fire Giant was going to be very risky. Sylvanas calls careful because the enemy team is kicking around at this point. So I'm going to ult in. Again, I want to get somebody killed. I'm going for the Thanatos. Right, I want to get behind them. I want to apply that pressure. I miss this initiation. I'm looking more for whatever else I can get my hands on at this particular point in time. And at this point, I'm just trying to see who needs some help because there's a whole bunch of areas. But I decided to help the Ishtar because you can see right away, right, while I'm sliding around for 10 minutes, oops, on the ice. Hold on, that's too far up. Right. I'm sliding around for about a year on this ice. I'm trying to figure out who needs help, but it is clearly Ishtar here. She's dealing with Scotty and Artio, so I'm looking to help her out there. I use my Ankh to prevent healing. At this point now, Ishtar needs help again. She got ulted. Take that out. Unfortunately, Ishtar dies, but I'm able to set up for the Vulcan again. Right? Absolutely great. Hera's kicking around over there. I go with Ra to follow that through because I'm not going to be able to catch up to the Vulcan in time at this point, and we have a catapult over here, so that's why I stick with the Ra. So I'm looking to just I'm willing to sacrifice myself, but at this point I'm tanky enough and far enough ahead that I'm not likely to. In fact, you can see I don't take that much damage. I'm just going to stand here and absorb the tower shots, so that way the Trebuchet can take that. Vulcan comes in from behind for some extra damage because he stopped chasing those people in mid lane, which was definitely the correct choice. And then we have just looking to push this Trebuchet under again. Right? Now I'm ulting in, and I go into the jungle very specifically so I'm not seen. I ult in. I'm looking to distract the enemy here. I'm not actually looking... That was a great ult by Ra, by the way. My goal there was not actually to get Thanatos killed. That was just because the Ra was really paying attention and had ult up and just did amazing things. Absolutely fantastic job by the Ra, incidentally. But my goal there was to buy them time for the Trebuchet to take out this Phoenix. That was my goal there, right? It still works. It's actually a better option. But my minimum goal was to get the Trebuchet to take out the Phoenix, and the death of the Thanatos is kind of a happy bonus here. So at this point, I'm pressuring the Thor once again just because I am trying to get that Phoenix destroyed. The Phoenix goes down. I take the Thor. I'm trying to take out the Scotty now. You'll notice I go from the Artio to the Scotty right away, and there's 2 reasons for this. First is, I have Vulcan with me, and Scotty is between Vulcan and leaving, right? If Vulcan needs to retreat, Vulcan unfortunately does not have any escape. So my chief concern right now is that Scotty is basically standing between Vulcan and his escape. So I want Scotty dead. Artio was not between Vulcan and his potential avenue of escape. So Artio no longer was a priority. Right? You can see where I actually saw her on the minimap. There's no call out here. Where once the Thor dies and I'm looking at the Artio, once he dies, I turn around right away. Boom. Because I can hear the turret shooting. I can see her on the minimap. I go on to her immediately because, again, I don't want her to block the Vulcan from escaping. Down goes Scotty. I am perfectly content to press down on this Titan. Right, I think we've got a good shot at this. We're all alive. We're all kicking around near in the area. We have a bunch of minions coming in. Ra calls mid-Phoenix. Good call. Everyone else had backed off. In fact, Ishtar and Sylvanas are going for the Fire Giant, which is fine. Attacking the Hera here. Again, to keep the Phoenix aggro on me, we wind up killing her. But again, that was primarily to maintain that aggro. But, however, I overstepped. The Ra apologizes for no reason. That was entirely my miscalculation. I could have left a little earlier. I didn't. I could have used my dash out, right? But that was my mistake. I I miscalculated how much damage I was taking. And so you can see where the Ra is being initiated on, because obviously Artio was there. They killed the Thanatos and the Artio. And now they're going to be looking to probably press the mid lane. And at this particular point in time, it's just a matter of the final push. It really is. I mean, I've got full build. I'm exactly where I need to be. We are very far ahead at this point. And I'm just checking up the builds really quick. I'll talk about those at the end of the match in more detail. But, you know, this is our final push here. And I know it's our final push. They have 2 Phoenixes down. They've got Fire Minions coming in everywhere. They are literally 15,000 gold down. They're down by almost 20 kills. And we just got the Primal Furies. So we are rolling. We have, well, some of us have the Fire Giant buff. I don't, because I died. But the rest of them do. So we also have that advantage. And their only remaining Phoenix isn't at full health in the first place. So this is practically in the bag at this point. I know this, and the rest of the team knows this. Sylvanas calls attacking the middle Phoenix. I concur. In I go, right? I'm just looking to go right in. However, the reason why I don't is because you can see where they're being pressed in right lane, right? Ishtar, in fact, is half dead. We've got an almost dead Hera, but then we section out this Artio here, take her out really quick, right? Vulcan kills Thor, and we have these two very low on health. I'm looking to ult them. I actually missed the Scotty. I miscalculate this. And so I'm trying to take her out. I miss again, right? Thanatos takes out Ishtar, which is unfortunate. I'm looking to... Now I have to make a decision. Now I see over here that Vulcan is nearly dead and fighting the Hera. And I see right over here that we have Thanatos versus the Ra, but obviously, based on how Vulcan's health was, that wasn't likely to happen. But she takes him out, and she's backing at this point. Sylvanas takes out the Thanatos. You can see that, you know, beginning to happen, right? So I come around here. You have Thanatos fighting Ra over here. Thanatos backs off. Sylvanas is chasing. And you can see that Thanatos engaged here. I'm looking to make sure that Vulcan's death was not in vain. I take out the Hera here. I actually get paranoid and use Horrific Curse. Now we just have Scotty to deal with, and we've got 3 people here. Right, we've got Fire Minions pressing down, so I'm just trying to create a distraction at this point, because you could see the Titan fighting the Fire Minions in the background, so I just want to keep her busy. But it turns out we just straight up kill her. She does almost take me out, but we do actually kill her first. And then at this particular point, we take the Phoenix, and the Fire Minions basically clean up the rest of the Titan, to be honest. Right, Artio respawns, but she's not going to be enough to prevent that from happening, in all honesty. You can see how low it already is. The Artio is just concerned with us for some reason. You can see more Fire Minions coming in to attack her. You can see Thor coming in to attack. I'm just looking to create this distraction to make sure that they don't attack the Fire Minions that are taking out their Titan. Right? Boom. There goes Artio, and there goes the Titan right afterwards. Ra ulted it, but he really didn't need to. It was just already over at that point. It was slightly faster, right? So that was a really great game. I had great allies. That Vulcan especially. Shout out to the Vulcan. Amazing gameplay, amazing awareness by the Vulcan in that. So I do the commendations here, and then we're going to talk about the itemization here. All right. So there's a lot of interesting things going on here. Now, the Thor did wind up going with the Runic Hammer. My knee-jerk response, as I said earlier, was that it was going to be Frostbound. I thought Thor was going to go for a really interesting Frostbound hammer build. He did not. Now, the problem with building Runic Hammer right now. Okay, in case you aren't aware, Runic Hammer increases your damage by, I think, 10% if the enemy is afflicted by hard crowd control. That's all well and good on Thor. Thor has a stun that triggers Runic Hammer. That's fine. The problem is Thor built it first, right? It was, well, technically second, but Thor built it second, right? Runic Hammer is not a heavy enough damage item or a heavy enough protection item to really either give you the protections you need or the damage you need to really make a difference in the solo lane. In other words, really, even though he had 10% increased damage, that wasn't going to mean that much that early in the game. Okay? Especially since the Ra was, in fact, going for Warlock's staff. And so by the time Thor built Runic Hammer, Ra was going to have the max health to withstand it, right? This is actually a large part of the reason why Ra was able to get away with the double stacks, is because Thor wasted his time building Runic Hammer way too early and then only built the Pestilence after the fact. A much better idea would have either to go Pestilence first or possibly even Genji's Guard and then either follow up with Brawler's Speedstick or double down on the magic protections, right? So there's really, in my opinion, two strong options for Thor here. Keeping the Warrior's Axe, that's fine. Although, frankly, Bluestone probably is better on Thor, especially given our team composition. But anyways, ignoring the starter item, the better choice here would have either been Brawler's Beatstick and then go into Genji's Guard, or Genji's Guard into Brawler's Beatstick, or possibly Pestilence into Soul Eater, or Soul Eater into Pestilence, right? Runic Hammer, again, isn't defensive enough nor damaging enough to really do what you needed to do. You either need to be building damage right away so you can take out the enemy solo laner in a boxing match, or be durable enough that you can outlast the enemy solo laner in a boxing match. And Runic Hammer accomplishes neither of these. It is too mixed of an item for that, right? A little bit of damage, a little bit of health. That's all well and good, but it's not going to win you boxing matches, right? That's the crux of that. Now, the Thanatos is... I mean, other than that specific issue, and the fact that he really doubled down on physical protections for some interesting reason. Now, looking at our team comp, we have 3 sources of magic damage, and I'm very specifically a physical support. So we only actually had one serious form of physical damage, right? That would be Ishtar. Okay, so for Thor to be building so much physical protections against literally one primary source of physical damage. Yes, I'm Horus. Yes, Gladiator's shield was slapping. Yes, I was hitting really damn hard. Yes. However, at the end of the day, what really killed Thor a lot of the time, as the Vulcan proved with the Penta, was not me, and it was not Ishtar, right? Although our physical damage did contribute, it was more down to the sheer amounts of magic damage being pumped out by Sylvanas, Ra, and Vulcan. So what Thor really should have done is actually really double down on that magic protections, not the physical. Even, I mean, Glad Shield is fine, but Breastplate of Valor really should have been something along the lines of, just to maintain the cooldowns to some extent, a great option would have been Genji's Guard. Or if you really wanted to be surprise tanky, Bulwark of Hope, right? There were much better options. But what Thor really needed and didn't purchase was magic protections. Past Pestilence, he went nowhere near that, right? Against our team composition. Now, the Thanatos' build, very standard for Thanatos. Again, I don't really like Mannequin's Mace or whatever it's called, the first one. I don't really like that as a starter item on Thanatos. I know that the point is to evolve it into what Sylvanas had. The Hidden Blade, I think it's called. I'm aware that that's the point. I just don't find the Hidden Blade useful enough on Thanatos in my personal opinion. I think there are better starter items on him. Ardio's build, very standard. Nothing too big of a deal there. Although the switch to damage in the second half of the game is very interesting. Look, I didn't immediately notice that. You have really standard support Ardio build for the first half, and then suddenly this deviates into damage in the second half. Which is a big reason why she died so quick. You can actually see a great example of that right at the end there when she was trapped against the gate. How quickly she died there, against literally only 3 people. One of whom, like I said, myself, wasn't really hitting that hard. She really shouldn't have been trying to do more damage. Hera really did have the magic damage on lock. That really wasn't a problem. The problem was not that the enemy team didn't have enough damage. The problem was the enemy team didn't have enough defense. And it had the wrong defense when it was building defense. Thor did not have the right protections. Ardio did not have enough protections, right? That is what that comes down to. And that is a huge reason why, despite the fact that I was the only one on our team building protections, despite that, I was able to get away with it because their front line was building way too soft, essentially. They effectively only had one whole person as a front line because the Ardio stopped building protections halfway through the match, and Thor stopped building the correct protections halfway through the match. Scotty's build is a standard crit build, nothing wrong with it. In particular, Hera's build, decent enough. I, again, have no real particular issues with that. The Scotty and the Hera's builds are perfectly fine, so is Thanatos'. It was the Thor and the Ardio's builds very specifically that stand out as being weird, and one of the bigger reasons why they got eliminated so quick, because once that front line falls, there is nothing preventing the enemy damage from killing your damage, right? So if a team doesn't have enough tanks or enough front line, as it's more commonly known, then the back line just is going to drop like flies. Especially since, because of how low the Thor and Ardio's protections were, I was able to easily outlast them in every situation, except one. And from there, I was able to lock down the enemy damage, and they weren't alive to stop me. Right? So that's the really big deal there. Now, again, the Sylvanas got away with the stacking of Book of Thoth primarily due to the fact that Thanatos started falling behind, and again, I gotta point out that it is risky. It is very risky to build Book of Thoth on a jungle Sylvanas. It worked here because the Thor misbuilt, the Ardio misbuilt, and we were able to pick off the Thanatos very easily in most team fights. So it's a great thing for Sylvanas. And yes, Sylvanas played excellently, but it was a risk. That was a risky decision. And it worked this time, but I must stress that you have to be very choosy with this. Alright? The Ra also somewhat gambled. Well, I won't say the Ra gambled on the lack of protections. The Ra probably looked at Thor's build and took a guess, and guessed mostly correctly. I don't know what the Ra was expecting out of the Frostbound Hammer, but once Thor started building the Breastplate of Valor, it was pretty much over for Thor, in all honesty. That combined with the horrendous gank that Thor did in mid lane really early on when Thor was level 7 and was 2 levels down from Ra, yeah, absolute disaster for Thor there, in all honesty. And that gave Ra basically carte blanche to build whatever he wanted. Okay? So that's really what happened there. That mistake combined with Thor's late game build really shot him in the foot, and Ardio trying to build damage in the second half of the game really shot her whole team in the foot because of also what Thor was building at the time, right? So with that being said, with all of that addressed, thank you all very much for joining me. If you liked this, please like and subscribe. If you didn't, please ignore me. And if you have any comments, questions, concerns, ideas, suggestions, or requests, please leave them down in the comment section below. And thank you all very much for joining me, and have a great 24 hours.